All right, everybody, welcome back to the KSR YouTube channel. Got, well, you saw the thumbnail. You know which car we're working on. I've got Vice Grip Garage's independent Chevelle here, which if you guys didn't know, we actually put one of our big block Chevrolets in there for sick week, and we're taking that engine back out to send to another guy who bought it. But first, we've got to get this thing out of here. She's got some interesting quarter panel tweakage to where the trunk won't close. So we've got to break out the KSR frame machine. Yeah, you'll see what that means in just a second. But got to break that out, see if we can tweak this tail back over. And we're also going to roll it back up on the dyno once we get the big motor back in and get this tune worked out to where Derek can blow the tires off this thing with ease. So CJ's got a tire out because you're going to see in just a second, I made a big mistake and put the Lexus in the trailer with both the rear tires flat on it, and it doesn't steer very straight. All right, time for us to get to work. All right, this thing's kind of tight in the trailer too, so yeah, enjoy this bit of acrobatics. Either climb over it this way or... Wow.
Don't scratch it.
Try not to. Now watch me get in here and the battery will be dead.
Oh, that's funny.
If that happens, I'm just put it in neutral and y'all can pull me out.
CJ, you want to grab the tire shop?
Are all the front straps off the thing?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the vacuum pump.
The tire's completely flat.
All right, fire in the hole, hopefully. Tire off the beat. Huh. I guess that's something else we gotta fix. I mean, it's like off the beat.
Yep.
Well, it was flat.
Well, there's something we gotta fix.
Got plenty of tread
A
left.
little bit flat. Well, we're gonna do a safety burnout later too to fix that. But first we get the tire back on the rim. All right, well, I have hopped into our 2021 frame machine. Gonna get her lined up on the old Chevelle there. Let's see if we can do a thing. I see Drew back there. Looks like I need to be over that way a little bit more. We gotta get the alignments right and the angles. Yeah, beep beep. All right.
was that?
Not good enough.
I said snatch it, not tug on it.
It's a little tougher.
You didn't do anything. There you go. Nothing.
All right, we're trying something a little different. We pulled it out of the shop further so I can really try and hit this thing. Here goes nothing.
Oh, you almost had it.
I chickened out.
Straighten in the frame. Oh, you almost had it.
I chickened out.
I can tell. Keep coming back. All right. Now don't stop till you get to the fence. There you go. I still don't think you did anything.
Really? Nothing?
Nothing. It might have moved an 1/8 inch. And now the car's really crooked, so.
How crooked is it?
One more pull.
It's not gonna hit anything else, is it?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Yep. Look at this stuff falling out.
All right, 4th time's the charm. Yeah. Don't worry about that. It'll be all right. All right, independent Chevelle.
Ready?
Fire in the hole.
Something. Ready?
Fire in the hole.
Do something. Oh yeah. I wouldn't call it good, but it shuts.
I wouldn't call it good.
I mean, it's got body gaps like a Tesla, but
I think it needs another hit.
I agree.
All right, let's give this one more tug. It's close. I just gotta stop being a weenie.
There you go.
All right, was that better?
Looks pretty good to me. See what she looks like. Ooh, that looks good on that
Hey.
side. Oh, it clicked. All right.
Nice. Expert frame repairman.
Yes.
All right, let's get to work.
All right. Come on now. That door kicking your butt over there a little bit?
Yeah, the inside handle doesn't work. All right, well, fast forward a few hours later, and Drew's been working. We got KSR 496 out, and we are getting ready to put the big boy Blueprint 540 back in. If you guys didn't know, right before Sick Week, Derek had brought us the car for some tuning. We saw some weird stuff, and we didn't want to let Blueprint down if the motor was possibly wounded. I had this 496 laying around, ready to be assembled, so we chucked it together, threw it in the car, did a real quick tune on it, went through the week perfectly on Sick Week, ran 980, 960? I don't know, 9 something at over 140 miles an hour. Not a whole lot of boost. I think it was like 11 pounds of boost. And did the burnout show 2 weekends ago down at Cletus and Cars. Everything seems great. The compression test looks even slightly better than what it did when we first put it in. That's actually one thing I do with every engine we put in. As soon as we get that first heat cycle on it, after it cools down, we run a compression test on the engine, document that. And then in years down the road, especially an engine that's being run hard, we'll compression test it again, say a year later, anything like that, just to keep an eye on the health of the rings, health of the engine, basically. Also keeping an eye on the oil pressure, like document what it reads at, say, 100 degrees coolant temp, and then what the oil pressure is once it's fully warmed up at idle, you know, little things like that just to document. Basically, you're just keeping an eye on the health of the engine. So we're getting ready to swap the intake and valve covers over on to the Blueprint 540. And then it will be going back in, and then we will be constructing a burnout contest specific exhaust system. It's not one like some other people have done. We're gonna put a little engineering mindset to it and see just exactly what we can come up with for a custom exhaust system that's gonna make Vice Grip Garage and his independent Chevelle really blow the smoke in the burnout contest. So once we get done with that, chuck it back up on the dyno, break in the new 540. Actually, it's not a new 540. Basically, we took this engine down and had the head skimmed just a little bit, put a new fresh head gasket in it, went through and looked at all the bearings, the rings, made sure everything looked happy there. Kind of think we were maybe being a little overly concerned, maybe too cautious, like the engine probably would have been okay. But Derek and I didn't want to let the fans down because it would have been a big time bummer if the car had not made sick week or only made 1 day of sick week if something was wounded. So, Blueprint 540 back in, KSR 496 out. It's getting boxed up and shipped off. We're gonna put it on the stand, change the oil pan on it, because if you remember, we smeared some silicone on the oil pan to make it through the week. So we're gonna put a new oil pan on it, and while we've got the oil pan off, probably gonna inspect the bearings. The oil coming out of it looked really good for the abuse that it had on it, so I don't think we're gonna see any issues, but I wanna check it before it gets sent out. And yeah, you gonna have this running by this afternoon?
No.
Oh, come on.
Do you want to work till midnight? Because I don't.
No. I got kids tonight, so can't do that. But hopefully we'll get her back in. I'm gonna time lapse that for you, walk you through. You guys can kind of see what all is going on with that. This one's kind of a pain in the butt to put in, not gonna lie. Because of the kick out on the oil pan, we have to assemble the motor mounts to the engine after they're already sitting in the car. And it takes a little bit of extra shimming to get header clearance, and maybe you have that same problem on your car, that it takes a kind of specific installation process for the engine. But see, everything's nice and clean in here. Hopefully get this thing stuffed back in there and probably be cranking it up tomorrow, maybe. We'll see. Might have another piece coming that we'll have to show you. Well, yeah, the exhaust kit will be here tomorrow, so we'll document that for you guys as well. But right now, we're gonna get into getting this thing back in the car. All right, well, like I said a second ago, first order of business is to swap the valve covers and intake over between the engines. So Drew's getting set up here, gonna pull the very patriotic valve covers off of the KSR 496, get them set down on a nice blanket to keep them from getting scratched, and pull our cast valve covers that we had with the 496 originally and put those back onto the 496 now that they're done with the 540. I don't know if it's just this camera angle or what, but that big block looks absolutely huge with the valve covers on there. I mean, maybe I've just been messing with LS engines for too long, but we still do the occasional big block at KSR, and that sucker just looks enormous sitting there on the engine stand. But yeah, maybe that's just me. That's not even a tall deck engine in either one of these. So anyways, now that he's got that all taken care of, we're going to actually set the intake onto the new engine and kind of verify port alignment. Just look down through the runners, make sure everything looks like it's lined up pretty good, which it should have been, but we didn't really check it because we didn't do the work on the original assembly of the 540. So just wanted to check that and make sure everything looked good there. And now that that's done, put a little bead of silicone across the front and back of the block where the intake's going to rest on it. We do glue down the intake gaskets with just a little bit of silicone On the cylinder head side only, which if you saw on the 496, the intake gaskets stayed stuck to the heads really good. And I actually take a little bit of baby powder and put on the intake side of the gasket. And usually you can get a couple of reuses out of the intake gasket. Yeah, no, not that it's a big deal to save a little bit of money on intake gaskets, but sometimes, especially on a big block that has the head bolts inside of the valley, it is nice to be able to pop the intake off when you're retorquing the cylinder heads and not have to put a new set of intake gaskets on it, because you can do it pretty quick. It's not like an LS that has the O-rings in the intake or around the intake ports. Although I think there's some of the higher end billet intakes for doing that, but obviously this is just a cast Holley intake already set up for multi-point fuel injection. And we've moved on now to moving the flex plate over between the engines, getting that torqued to spec. And you can see we actually painted the engine block this time. When Derek had originally gotten the engine from Blueprint, it was painted black, and he asked us if we could paint it to match the valve covers, which is actually a Cummins beige. A little bit different than you normally see on a big block Chevrolet, but kind of fits the car, fits the valve covers, looks pretty neat. So we're dropping the thing down in there now, and like I mentioned earlier, it's a little bit of a pain to get the engine mounts all lined up, just because of how the oil pan fills the distance between the transmission and the engine crossmember. So we drop the thing down in there with a piece of wood underneath the oil pan, finish bolting the transmission and the engine together, and then here in a few minutes we're actually going to push the engine up with the screw jack and then put the motor mounts onto the block to where the bolt will line straight up through the chassis mount. And then it'll all be tight and secure down in there. There goes Drew pushing the engine up, which the first thing to do is get the driver's side header in, because it makes it a lot easier without the motor mount bolts in, so you can lift it up nice and high to get the header back up in there. We possibly could have done that ahead of time and just left the header laying in the chassis, but it does fit in after the engine is already assembled if you just lift it up a little bit. So now we've got the motor mount bolts assembled, and like I said earlier, it takes a little bit of shimming. Small block and big block Chevrolets have a 3-bolt attachment for the motor mounts, and just with a little bit of shimming either on the bottom, you can kick them one direction if you shim the front or shim the rear, or a combination of those. You can usually push the motor mount around and even move the motor side to side if you need to get some extra header clearance on one side versus the other. You can also level the engine with these. Not saying that the frame is perfectly straight in the independent Chevelle, but we tried to get everything nice and level just to help out. You know, it looks better when the thing's in there level, at least I think it does. And it also helped with header clearance to push the engine over towards the passenger side just a little bit. Gave it a little bit more clearance to the steering shaft, or between the steering shaft and the headers. But now that we've got all that taken care of, we're back working on the top of the engine, plugging all the wiring back in. We moved the distributor over previously, and basically we spun the 496 over to a specific crankshaft degree, marked where the distributor was pointing, both the rotor and the base, spun the 540 over to that same specific crankshaft degree, moved everything right over. Should fire right back up again and have the timing where we had it set on the 496. Once we get it cranked up, one of the first things we'll do is verify that the timing matches on the timing light and in the computer itself. And then we'll have full control of the ignition and the fueling again, all through the Holley ECU. And while we're going through this, we decided to rearrange some of the hoses a little bit, just make things flow a little bit better, shorten the lines up for the valve cover breather tank, and a few other little things that we'll show you in the next video. But the last struggle we had to do on this thing is sneaking the starter in between the header and the oil pan, which with the kick out oil pan that you can see there, it's a little tight, especially with the electrical wires that go to the starter having all the heat wrap on them, it definitely got a little busy up under there. All right, well, we are super close to having this thing ready to fire back up, but not today. Sorry. I gotta go get kids from school, or at least my oldest. And Drew has almost got it wired up where we could crank it up open headered again and without the water pump and radiator and stuff in it. So we will get back on that tomorrow, and then it'll be time to work on the exhaust, which tomorrow's video I'm gonna show you guys a new car to the channel. Like I said yesterday, it's a car that's got a lot of history with KSR that a lot of history with me, a lot of history with KSR. So you can see that in tomorrow's video. And for now, that's gonna be it. You almost got it ready to crank.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost don't count. We ain't playing horseshoes.
You got a point.
Yeah, no hand grenades in the shop.
True, that is a rule we have. Yep, I do.
We had that one time.
Yeah.
Ever since then. Someone's gonna ask about that now.
All right, thank you guys all for watching. We just hit 270,000 subscribers today. It's freaking awesome. So we'll see you guys next time.